Employee Wellbeing by Katrina Davis, Director of Come Alive UK. Introduction. Welcome to this tutorial on employee wellbeing. By the end of this tutorial, you will know what wellbeing means and how to maintain physical wellbeing in the workplace. Know what mental health is and why people develop mental health conditions. Know how to have a supportive conversation with a person presenting with a mental health condition. Know how to recognise stress and the impact that stress has. Know how to recognise a range of mental health conditions. And understand the impact of substance abuse on mental health. And finally, know how to implement a positive mental health culture in the workplace. Chapter 1. What is well-being? In this chapter, we consider what well-being is and how to support our physical well-being. Well-being is more than being healthy. It includes physical fitness, but it also incorporates mental and social fitness too. Well-being is defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as a state of being comfortable, healthy, or happy. However, well-being is more than being happy in the moment. It includes how we physically feel, how satisfied we are with our life, how connected we are to others, and how much control we have in our life. It is important to view well-being as being something we ought to nurture throughout our life and not simply view it as being the absence of the symptoms of illness. Improving physical well-being in the workplace has many benefits, both to the employee, the team in which they may work, and the business as a whole. Some businesses value well-being and promote it more than others, but there is almost universal agreement that a healthy workforce is a productive and happy one. There are 4 main areas we're considering how to maintain physical well-being in the workplace. The first, rest and recovery. Health professionals often highlight the importance of good sleep hygiene in promoting good mental and physical health. Some important factors to consider when thinking of your own sleep pattern are being clear in your own mind how much sleep you should ideally have each night. It is usually more than what you might think. Aim to have at least 7 to 9 hours per night. Whenever possible, try to stick to a consistent sleep routine, with getting up and going to bed times remaining fairly constant. In addition, it's really important to have time within the working day or week to recover from the impact of work on our physical well-being. And that means taking regular breaks, schedule time for lunch and breaks each day, and see this as being time which is equally vital to your productivity and progress within work as any other task within work. Take time off. Ensure you take all your holiday allowance each year and take time to disconnect and completely to recharge. Ensure too that you disconnect on your scheduled days off in a working week. The second key area is nutrition. Ensure that you have a balanced diet with a minimum of 5 portions of fruit and veg each day. Think of what you eat as being the fuel your body needs to function properly. A poor diet will not provide your body with all the nutrients it requires, which eventually may lead to ill health. It's important too to remain hydrated and aim for 6 to 8 glasses a day of fluids. A well-balanced diet will help concentration and productivity levels within work and help these remain balanced throughout the working day. For more information on nutrition, see the Eat Well guide on the NHS Inform website. The third area is keeping active. Ensuring we move our body and take some form of regular physical activity is an important part of well-being. Research has shown that those people who lead an active lifestyle are more likely to live longer and less likely to develop serious illnesses and health conditions. Research also suggests that regular physical activity can improve your general mood, self-confidence and sleep quality, as well as giving you more energy and reducing stress levels. The easiest way of becoming more active is to make physical activity part of your everyday life. One easy way to do this is to build more activity into your daily commute. This could mean walking, cycling, or running all or part of the way to work. If you take public transport, you could get off the bus or train early and walk the rest of the way. Alternatively, if you're working from home, use the time that you would have spent on your commute to go for a walk or perhaps take part in an online exercise class. The fourth key area within the workplace is the impact that sitting has. For those who sit for a large part of their working day, it is important to recognise the impact that too much prolonged sitting can create for our well-being. It is thought to slow your metabolism, affecting the body's ability to regulate blood sugar, blood pressure, and break down body fat, which in turn can increase your chances of getting a number of serious health conditions. Consider ways in which you may break up prolonged sitting periods through taking breaks or standing for certain tasks if possible. Ensure too that your workstation is set up correctly and your seat is in the correct height and supports you well. Seek specialist support to ensure it's ergonomic if necessary. Chapter 2. What is mental well-being? In this chapter, we will explore what mental well-being is and how it relates to mental health. Mental well-being in general is a state of thriving in various areas of our life, such as in relationships, at work, play, and more. It's the knowledge that we are separate from our problems and the belief that we can handle those problems, that we have a level of mental resilience to be able to manage the demands that life throws at us. It's helpful to look at two further definitions when we are considering mental well-being. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also determines how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Everyone has mental health. In this context, mental health and mental well-being are interchangeable ways to describe the same definition. The term mental illness covers a very broad range of mental health problems which can involve changes to our thoughts, emotions, behaviours, and relationships with others. Mental illnesses are associated with distress and problems functioning in our day-to-day lives. Mental illness is treatable. In the exact same way we take steps to look after our physical health, we also need to take steps to ensure we are mentally well. When we are physically ill, our body struggles to perform the tasks that we usually would carry out without any problem. In the exact same way, when our mental health is impacted, we can struggle to carry out daily tasks and our ability to perform at work is impacted. There is a clear link between our mental and physical health, with each being affected by the other. To ensure we are well and able to live our lives to the fullest extent, we need to look after both our mental and physical health. Part of being aware of mental health is being aware of the scale of the issue. However, it's difficult to obtain accurate figures representing the prevalence of mental health conditions in Scotland at any given time. One reason is that many people who have mental health conditions do not seek help from traditional mental health services. However, I will cover some helpful statistics which give an indicator of the scale of mental illnesses, which is one of Scotland's major health challenges. It is estimated that more than 1 in 3 people are affected by a mental health problem each year. The most common illnesses are depression and anxiety, with 1 in 3 GP appointments relating to a mental health problem. About 1 in 8 of Scots, 12%, take or use an antidepressant every day. The other main drugs for mental health are used only by about 1 to 3% of the population. And in 2018 in Great Britain, there were 595,000 cases of work-related stress, depression or anxiety leading to 15.4 million working days lost. Just think of that for a second, 15.4 million working days lost. Therefore, supporting staff to ensure they are mentally well is not only key in being a supportive employer and morally the right thing to do, it also makes huge economic sense. It is also helpful to know that whilst the number of people being treated for mental health issues is rising, this does not appear to be because more people have mental illness, but because more people are accessing treatment as understanding grows and the stigma of mental health and illness reduces. The impact of mental ill health can affect many areas of our life, and the impact it has on each of these areas can vary depending on our mental illness and the treatment we require to support our illness. Mental ill health can affect us in a variety of ways. It can affect us day to day. Our mental ill health can affect many areas of our life and have an impact on our friends and family. It can affect our physical health. It can impair our ability to protect and develop our physical well-being, as I've already described. It can affect our work. Obtaining or maintaining a job may be more difficult when symptoms of a mental health condition make it harder for us to function normally. It can affect education. Studying may be more difficult when living with a mental health condition, and often students do not reach their true potential. It can affect our driving. Mental health conditions themselves do not stop people from driving. However, certain medications that the person may be taking as treatment for the mental health condition may influence that decision. Our ability to parent and its impact on our children. Mental illness can affect relationships and family life. It can affect both the quality of your relationships, sometimes leading to a relationship breakdown, and can also affect children growing up in a house with a parent who has mental illness. Certain medications can also have effect on pregnancy. And finally, stigma. Stigma can create barriers for people to seek help for their mental health condition and can make their condition much worse if they choose not to seek the help they require. Stigma is such an important issue within mental health that it's helpful to explore further. What is stigma then? So stigma can be defined as a set of prejudicial attitudes and values which may lead to discriminatory behaviours. In the context of mental health, there are two main types of stigma. There is social stigma, which includes the negative attitudes and discriminatory behaviours that society or particular individuals hold toward those with mental health problems, and also self-stigma. This is where people with mental health problems believe what is being said about their condition and agree with their viewpoints. This quote serves to remind us that we speak with greater ease about our physical health with others and readily offer our sympathies. However, stigma around mental health can reduce the ease in which we openly speak with someone if we are aware that they have a mental health condition and may affect how we treat them. There are a number of adverse effects caused by mental health stigma, including fear of disclosing to peers that you have a problem, reluctance to seek professional support, victimisation, harassment and physical violence, difficulties finding employment and taking part in activities, lack of understanding from family and friends, and developing a practice of self-stigmatisation. All of these adverse effects compound the difficulties a person with mental illness has to access treatment and regain their mental well-being. Clearly, no individual should have to tolerate others treating them differently because of a mental health condition. However, there are ways to combat stigma, and I'll cover a few of them. If you feel that you have a mental health condition yourself, seek professional help. Don't let the fear of being labelled with a mental illness stop you from accessing the treatment you require to be mentally well. Ensure that there are resources available within your workplace by ensuring that colleagues have access to information to improve their understanding. Consider training a number of staff as mental health first aiders, so they're informed first point of contact within the business to support staff. And lastly, perhaps organise local campaigns or get involved with national campaigns within your workplace to promote both mental well-being and awareness of mental ill health. Chapter 3. Mental health in the workplace. Mental health problems can develop outside and inside of the workplace. There are several internal factors to the workplace which can have a negative effect on mental health and make it harder for staff to remain well. Factors can include unmanageable workloads, long hours and increasing pressures, lack of control over work and poor supervision from management, lack of involvement when the workplace is undergoing change, bullying, stigmatization and bad relationships with peers or colleagues, traumatic experiences, inadequate pay or problems receiving pay, and lack of reward and recognition, dangerous or poor physical working environments. Each of these factors can have a significant impact on the well-being of your staff, and such is the impact of these that there are a range of legislation that aim to ensure that staff are protected within work from these factors. As an employer, it is important to know about this legislation and ensure that your company adheres to the law. The key legislation that is important to be aware of includes the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, the Mental Health Act 1983, the Mental Capacity Act 2005, the Equality Act 2010, the Human Rights Act 1998, and the Data Protection Act 2018. Employers have a duty of care. This means they must do all they can reasonably to support their employees' health, safety and well-being. This includes making sure the work environment is safe, protecting staff from discrimination, carrying out risk assessments, and it is also important to be aware that a mental health issue can be considered a disability under the law if all of the following apply. It has a substantial adverse effect on the life of an employee. For example, they regularly cannot focus on a task, or it takes them longer to do a task. It lasts at least 12 months or is expected to. It affects their ability to do their normal day-to-day activities, for example, interacting with people or following instructions. A mental health issue can be considered a disability even if they're not symptoms all of the time, or the symptoms are better at some times than others. If an employee has a disability, as an employer, you have a duty of care to ensure that they are not discriminated because of their disability. And you must consider making reasonable adjustments to enable the employee to work effectively. To access further guidance around your duties as an employer, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, or NICE, and the Health and Safety Executive all have useful resources. It's helpful then to think, how then can employers build a positive mental health culture in the workplace? Good mental health and well-being is one of the most valuable assets to any organisation. So in addition to be aware of the relevant legislation, there are also some steps employers can take to improve the mental health culture within their workplace. These may include developing a mental health action plan and policy, providing mental health training across the business, adjusting job roles to accommodate new responsibility, publicising the organisation's commitment to mental health, evaluating the possible causes of mental ill health in the workplace and signifying which areas need improvement, ensuring employers and senior management spend more time communicating and getting to know their employees, monitoring employee performance and providing recognition and reward for achievements. And finally, providing health services or return to work schemes and flexible working hours to help employees meet their personal responsibilities. All of these will help improve the mental health culture within your business, which can have a significant impact, leading to reduced staff sickness absence and turnover of staff, whilst also improving productivity and team morale, all of which reduce costs to your business. Chapter 4, Mental Health and Mental Ill Health. As I've already said in Chapter 2, mental health does not simply mean the absence of a mental illness. It is possible to have good mental well-being whilst living with a diagnosed mental illness. In contrast, someone who has no diagnosable mental illness can still have a low level of mental well-being. It is helpful to consider the mental well-being continuum to describe how mental well-being and mental illness interact. Of course, as it's a continuum, a person can be within a quadrant to a greater or lesser extent, and therefore their mental well-being or their mental illness may be impacted to a greater or lesser extent within each quadrant. It is important to remember this continuum as we begin to consider mental health conditions. There are a number of mental health risk factors that are helpful to be aware of to support awareness of the potential of these risk factors impacting your staff. Some of these risk factors include severe or long-term ongoing stress, unemployment or losing a job, social isolation or loneliness, social disadvantage, financial troubles, and the death of a loved one, all of which we may experience at some point in our lives. The extent to which we're impacted by these risk factors and then develop mental ill health depends on the support we have and also on our own inherent resilience. If we also have one of the following risk factors, such as domestic abuse, poverty, homelessness, trauma as a child or adult, or a long-term physical health condition, then our resilience or mental well-being may be lower, leading to a general greater likelihood that we will develop mental ill health. It is important as an employer to be aware of the early warning signs of a mental health issue so you can provide the appropriate support to your employees. Sometimes it's the case that changes in behaviour aren't as apparent to the person as they are to others around them. Some of the signs to be aware of include losing interest in activities that were previously enjoyed, underperforming at work with no apparent explanation, isolating themselves and seemingly not wanting to socialise as much as they used to, seemingly to be increasingly anxious, exhausted, or being able to settle to tasks as they used to, losing or gaining weight, talking about changes in perception such as hearing or seeing things that others don't, signs of cuts or bruising to uncommon areas of the body. Of course, a number of these can also happen without there being a mental health issue at play. However, in being aware of them, it is important to seek an opportunity to raise your concerns. Later in this tutorial, we will cover the ways in which you may do that. Chapter 5, Stress. Stress is defined by the Health and Safety Executive as being the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressure or other types of demand placed on them. Stress can also be defined as the degree to which you feel overwhelmed or unable to cope as a result of pressures that are unmanageable. What then causes stress? At the most basic level, stress is our body's response to pressures from a situation or life event. What causes stress can vary hugely from person to person and differs according to our social and economic circumstances, the environment in which we may live, and our genetic makeup. Some common features of things that can make us feel stressed include experiencing something new or unexpected, something that threatens your feeling of self, or feeling you have little control over a situation. There are many things that can lead to stress. The death of a loved one, divorce, separation, losing a job and unexpected money problems are all key stressors. However, not all life events are negative, and even positive life changes, such as moving to a bigger house or gaining a job promotion, or even going on holiday, can be sources of stress. So what is stress? When we encounter stress, our body is stimulated to produce stress hormones that trigger a flight or fight response and activate our immune system. This response helps us to respond quickly to dangerous situations. Sometimes this stress response can be an appropriate or even beneficial reaction. The resulting feeling of pressure can help us to push through situations that can be nerve-wracking, like giving a speech to a large crowd. We can quickly return to a resting state without any negative effect on our health if what is stressing us is short-lived. And many people are able to deal with a certain level of stress without any lasting effects. However, there can be times when stress becomes excessive and too much to deal with. If our stress response is activated repeatedly or it persists over time, the effects can result in wear and tear on the body and can cause us to feel permanently in a state of fight or flight. Rather than help us push through, this pressure can make us feel overwhelmed or unable to cope. Feeling this overwhelming stress for a long period of time is often called chronic or long-term stress, and it can impact on both physical and mental health. There are three main areas that are affected by stress. Emotional changes. When we are stressed, we may experience many different feelings, including anxiety, fear, anger, sadness, or frustration. These feelings can sometimes feed on each other and produce physical symptoms, making us feel even worse. For some people, stressful life events can contribute to symptoms of depression. Work-related stress can also have a negative impact on mental health and can be the singular source of stress or one of many contributing factors with an accumulative effect. Behavioural changes. When we are stressed, we may behave differently. For example, we may become withdrawn, indecisive, or inflexible. We may not be able to sleep properly. We may become irritable or tearful. Stress can also make us more aggressive or quicker to lose our temper. All of these behavioural changes can also affect how we interact with our work colleagues and friends. And the final area that's affected is bodily changes. When stressed, some people start to experience headaches or feel nauseous and have indigestion. We may breathe more quickly, perspire more, have palpitations, or suffer from various aches and pains. However, if the stress is short-lived, bodily changes will quickly return to normal without any negative effects. However, if we experience stress repeatedly over a prolonged period, our sleep and memory may be affected over the longer term. Chapter 6. Drugs and alcohol. When we talk about substance misuse, we mean the use of drugs or alcohol at levels that could cause us harm. Substance abuse or misuse is defined by the World Health Organization as the harmful or hazardous use of psychoactive substances, including alcohol and illicit drugs such as heroin, ecstasy, amphetamines such as speed or cocaine. Substance misuse can also relate to the use of prescribed medication or drugs out with the prescribing guidance given to the patient it was prescribed for. The reason why people use drugs and alcohol is called self-medicating. Self-medicating is when someone uses alcohol, illegal drugs, or prescription drugs as a coping mechanism to relieve symptoms of sadness or not being able to cope. While self-medicating may provide immediate relief of symptoms such as anxiety, this is only temporary. When someone has been diagnosed with a mental illness and has a subsequent alcohol or drug misuse problem, this is known as a dual diagnosis. The reason we drink alcohol and the consequences of excessive drinking are linked with our mental health. Mental health problems not only result from drinking too much alcohol, they can also cause people to drink too much. Put very simply, a major reason for drinking alcohol is to change our mood or our mental state. Alcohol can temporarily alleviate feelings of anxiety and depression, and people often use it as a form of self-medication in an attempt to cheer themselves up or sometimes help with sleep, as I've already described. This is often why people with mental health problems drink. However, it can make existing mental health problems worse. It can also be used as a form of coping for severe mental health illness. The lower risk limits of alcohol recommended by the NHS are not regularly drinking more than 14 units of alcohol a week. And if you drink as much as 14 units of alcohol a week, it is best to spread this evenly over 3 or more days, with at least 2 days without drinking alcohol in a week. Recreational drugs, including alcohol, can be harmful to your body in many ways. Drugs can affect the way you perceive things around you, your behaviour, and your physical and mental health, both in the short term and in the longer term. Short-term adverse effects on your mental health may include impaired judgment, mood swings, feelings of anxiety and depression, paranoia, confusion or memory problems, and perhaps an altered perception of reality. In the longer term, adverse effects may include withdrawal effects from excessive use of drugs or alcohol, often leading to addiction or dependency. Social problems such as being able to sustain employment or a breakdown in relationships. In addition, sustained excessive use can have a physical health impact, such as increasing the likelihood of getting various cancers. Mental health problems can be improved if someone reduces or stops taking drugs or alcohol for a reasonable amount of time. Supporting an employee to access professional help is the first step in supporting them to improve their mental health, which we will cover later. Chapter 7. Common mental health disorders. In this chapter, I will give you a brief overview of the signs and symptoms of the more common mental health illnesses, so that you may have a greater awareness of what these are. In no way does this mean that you'll be able to diagnose or suggest a diagnosis to someone you're concerned about. Merely it's to arm you with greater knowledge should an employee or colleague disclose a condition to you. Depression is when you feel consistently sad and unhappy for a long period of time, and it affects your everyday life. The severity of depression can be categorised into mild, moderate or severe, depending on the impact it has on your daily life. Some of the signs and symptoms of depression include avoiding contact with family and friends, avoiding social events and neglecting hobbies or not enjoying your usual activities in the same way, underperforming at work, having a continuous low mood, feeling upset or tearful, feeling hopeless and having low self-esteem, feeling irritable and being intolerant of other people and perhaps having thoughts of suicide or self-harm. Depression symptoms may vary among people, but generally encompasses a feeling of sadness or hopelessness. Anxiety is a normal body response, and we all experience feelings of anxiety. However, some people find it hard to control their worries. Their feelings of anxiety are more constant and can often affect their daily lives. In cases such as this, the condition is commonly diagnosed as generalised anxiety disorder. GAD is a common condition affecting approximately 5% of the UK population. Anxiety is also the main symptom of several conditions, including panic disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder, more commonly known as PTSD, and phobias such as claustrophobia. Symptoms of anxiety include changes in thoughts and behaviour, such as restlessness, a feeling of dread, a feeling of being on edge, difficulty concentrating or difficulty sleeping, and irritability. It can also involve physical feelings such as dizziness, nausea, heart palpitations, which is a noticeably strong or fast heartbeat, sweating, shortness of breath, headache, or dry mouth. Occasionally, feeling anxious, particularly about events or situations that are challenging or threatening, is normal and an extremely common response. However, if feelings of anxiety regularly cause significant distress or they start to impact on your ability to carry out your daily life, for example, by withdrawing or avoiding contact with friends and family, or feeling unable to go to work or avoiding places and situations, then it may be a sign of an anxiety disorder. An eating disorder is when you have an unhealthy attitude toward food, which can take over your everyday life and make you feel very poorly. Food plays an important part in all of our lives, and we all spend time thinking about what we have eaten or what we are going to eat. When you have an eating disorder, you will often eat too much or too little and become obsessed with your body weight and appearance. Many people believe if someone has an eating problem, they will noticeably appear under or overweight. This is not true. Anyone, regardless of their weight, age, or gender, can be seriously affected by an eating disorder. Eating disorders are not simply about food. The behaviours that accompany them often serve as a coping mechanism or a way to feel in control. Symptoms of eating disorders will vary between individuals and type of eating disorder. Not matching the symptoms exactly does not mean that someone does not have an eating disorder. However, some common symptoms include eating very little food or eating large amounts of food in a short time in an uncontrolled way, having very strict habits, rituals, or routines around food, spending a lot of time worrying about your body weight and shape, changes in mood, deliberately making yourself ill after eating, avoiding socialising when food may be involved, or physical signs such as digestive problems or weight being very high or very low for someone of your age and height. Self-harm is when someone intentionally hurts or injures themselves. For some, self-harm can represent a way of coping with or expressing feelings and emotions that are overwhelming or overpowering. Self-harm can refer to a range of behaviours, and because of this, estimates of how common it is can vary. However, we do know it is more common amongst younger people. Self-harm behaviours may start as a way to relieve the pressure of distressing thoughts or feelings which can feel overwhelming. It is common to occasionally experience emotions that are overwhelming. During these times, many people use strategies such as talking to friends and family to manage their feelings. However, for others, these feelings may build up, and they may turn the pressure in on themselves and use their bodies to release feelings of anger, guilt, or hopelessness. Signs of self-harm include unexplained cuts, bruises, or cigarette burns, usually on their wrist, arms, thighs, or chest. Signs of low self-esteem, such as blaming themselves for any problems or thinking they're not good enough. Keeping themselves fully covered at all times, even in hot weather. Signs of depression, such as low mood, tearfulness, or a lack of motivation or interest in anything. Becoming very withdrawn and not speaking to others, and claiming to have frequent accidents or mishaps. Psychosis is a mental health problem that causes people to perceive or interpret things differently from those around them. This might involve hallucinations, where a person hears, sees, and in some cases feels, smells, or tastes things that aren't there. A common hallucination is hearing voices or delusions, where a person has strong beliefs that aren't shared by others. A common delusion is someone believing there is a conspiracy to harm them. It can also present as confused thoughts or confusing speech, switching from one subject to another mid-sentence, talking very fast, or a sudden loss in their train of thought, or all other symptoms. Psychosis can be a symptom of several mental health conditions such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, substance abuse, or some forms of personality disorder. Chapter 8. Providing support within the workplace. In this chapter, armed with greater knowledge of mental health, I will now focus on how to provide support within the workplace. Creating a culture that supports mental well-being is fundamental to supporting employees with their mental health within the workplace. If it is the norm to discuss how employees are feeling and managing their work and life, then it supports your employees to disclose when they perhaps are struggling or needing to seek some support. Encouraging mental health to be discussed openly and honestly is a critical factor in supporting your well-being, in supporting your employees. This diagram serves to remind us that without that supportive culture, what we hear is the expected response of, "I'm good," rather than what really is going on for someone, as the text below the water suggests. So how then do you have a conversation with someone about their mental health? Starting a conversation with someone who you're concerned about can help tackle the stigma surrounding mental health in of itself. Often people are reluctant to do this as they're fearful that they'll say the wrong thing or worry how the person will react. It's helpful to think carefully about what you want to say before starting the conversation. Ask open questions such as, "How are you feeling?" and listen to them carefully without personal judgment. Non-judgmental listening is when you listen to what someone is telling you with your undivided attention and truly show an interest in what the person is trying to say. Of course, everyone has opinions, and it's natural to judge what the person is telling you, but you should keep these opinions to yourself and communicate with the person empathetically, which means without displaying any form of personal judgment. In this way, feeling that you're being listened to in of itself can be incredibly supportive to someone who is struggling. Consider too where you're having the conversation. Find a quiet, private space to ensure you're not interrupted when you can both speak in a confidential way. Ensure you make eye contact and aim to have open body language. As a rough rule of thumb, you ought to be listening more than you are talking. If you're seriously concerned about the mental health of an employee, then you should support them to seek professional help. If you're interested in learning more about how to support your employees, then consider taking a first aid for mental health course or support other members of staff to do so. Having trained employees and ensuring all staff are aware of who they are is a significant positive step in creating a positive and supportive culture within your workplace. Chapter 9, Supporting Staff with Their Wellbeing During COVID-19. As a leader and manager, particularly during these ever-changing times, it is important that you're fully aware of your role in supporting your staff's mental well-being. Employees will experience stressors to their mental health in a wide variety of ways, even more so in the current pandemic, as each member of staff will have individual family and life circumstances. In addition to being aware of the well-being of your team and taking action when you have concerns a member of your team is struggling, as we've already covered, there are a number of wider actions that you can take to support the whole team. The first of these is communication. Ensure that you have a method of maintaining regular contact with your team, both with those you line manage or with your own manager. Be ready to be honest and open in your communication and acknowledge this difficult period and the impact it may be having on each individual. If members of staff raise issues or questions that you simply don't have answers to, be confident in saying and take time to search for solutions or answers. Share too if you're feeling vulnerable as a leader, or share what you may be finding challenging during these unprecedented times. It is often the case that we feel more able to share our own concerns with others if we feel we are not isolated and struggling to cope. By opening up to your teams, you create a culture of normalising talking about mental well-being, and in doing so, create a stronger team. The second area is information. Keep staff up to date with government information as it unfolds, but only use reliable sources of information. Facebook isn't one of these. The Scottish Government website has a wealth of information on a wide variety of areas related to COVID-19 and is updated regularly. If you become aware of information being shared amongst your team from social media or other less reputable sources, ensure that it isn't creating anxiety amongst your team, particularly if it isn't accurate, and challenge the behaviour of those involved. And the final area is self-care. Encourage your team to take daily action for self-care, so they are clear about the steps they can take individually for their own mental well-being. Model that behaviour by ensuring your team are aware of the steps you take personally every day to support your own mental health. Remember that in a plane we are asked to put on our own oxygen masks on before helping others. It's a great analogy to remember as you seek to help your employees. You cannot help others if you aren't well-resourced yourself. Thank you for taking part in this wellbeing tutorial. I hope you found it helpful.